concentrate on his mother. His mother was a Christian, not a Muslim. Yazid's mother was a Christian. Her name was Maysoon. She was from the tribe of Kalb. This tribe were Jacobite Christians. They were Christian Bedouins who used to live in the desert. That's why his mother, when she would speak about the desert, she would speak about it in her famous lines of poetry. What did she say? She used to say, watching over me now are the dogs that bark, while I used to be watched by the cats that smile. I used to sleep to the tune of the wind, whereas now I sleep to the movement of the tambourines. Which means what? Which means that she detested the life Muawiyah had. In which way? She didn't like the palace life. Muawiyah was known for having big palaces. His wife Maysoon was a Christian Bedouin, a lady who was brought up in the deserts. She didn't like the life of living in the palaces. That's why she says, I used to sleep to the tune of the wind. Meaning what? Meaning I miss the nature of the desert. When I used to sleep in the desert, I used to sleep to the wind. Now in Muawiyah's palace, I sleep to the movement of the tambourines. That's why we find that this lady Maysoon, whenever Yazid was in the palace, she would want to take him to his grandparents from her side. And so she would take him to what is known as the Palmyrian Desert in Syria. What was the Palmyrian Desert? The Palmyrian Desert was where her tribe lived. Now you tell me one thing, brothers and sisters. Many times we say a Muslim man should not marry a Christian woman. Not because necessarily a Christian woman is a bad person, but because one day there will be a conflict of principles. There are certain things which we have in Islam which Christianity does not forbid. Now you imagine Yazid as he was being brought up. He's got his father's side of the family, and then he's got his mother's side of the family. He would go towards the desert with his mother, and when he would go towards the desert with his mother would allow him to engage in whatever he wanted. Meaning what? Meaning the Christian side of the family, alcohol was normal. Many Christian tribes and many Christians until today will still drink alcohol. Music was normal. Gambling was normal. Merrymaking, for example, with animals riding on horses was normal. Yazid was brought up in that environment. His mother was a Christian, and that's why you find that his father Muawiyah had an unbelievable relationship with Christians. Look at Muawiyah's government. You will find that many of his advisors were Christians. Now you imagine today in the Muslim world, in Medina or in Mecca, can you imagine a Christian being an advisor? Brothers and sisters, a Christian being an advisor in Mecca or Medina? No, they don't even allow churches in that country, let alone a Christian being the advisor. Muawiyah had a chief advisor. What was his name? Sir John. Remember a few nights ago we said Sir John was the advisor of Yazid. Yazid had inherited him from the father. Muawiyah had a specialist advisor who was a Christian. Muawiyah's physician, his doctor, was a Christian by the name of Harith al-Thaqafi. Even Muawiyah's grandchildren had Christian tutors. Khalid ibn Yazid, Yazid had 3 sons. He had a son called Muawiyah, who he named after his father. He had a son called Abdullah, and he had a son called Khalid. Khalid, the son of Yazid, his personal tutor in chemistry was a man by the name of Istafan al-Qadim. Istafan al-Qadim was a Christian. He was the personal tutor of Muawiyah's grandchildren. Even Muawiyah famously has a statement where he states to the Christians that if you remain Christian in an Islamic state, you only have to pay 1 jizya. But if you convert to Islam, you have to pay double the jizya. Listen to that. If you're a Christian living in the Islamic state, you pay 1 tax. But if any of you convert to Islam, I'm going to make you pay double. Do you want people to come to Islam or go away from Islam? Shouldn't I encourage the Christian to come towards Islam? No. If you become a Muslim, I will do what? I will charge you double. That's why if you want to understand Bani Umayyah, Muawiyah, Yazid, even after Yazid came, Hisham bin Abdul Malik used to hire Christian poets in his court. He had a poet by the name of Al-Akhtal. Al-Akhtal, what was his job? He used to recite poetry where he would curse the Ansar of Medina. Imagine, the Ansar who gave their life away to Rasulullah, they helped his message in Medina. What would he do? This Christian poet would sit in the court of the Khalifa, Hisham bin Abdul Malik, and he would curse the Ansar until eventually he cursed Rasulullah himself. He started cursing Rasulullah in front of Hisham bin Abdul Malik. Do you know who was sitting down? Zayd, the son of Imam Zainul Abidin. Zayd was sitting down. When Zayd saw this, he said to Al-Akhtal, stop cursing the messenger of Allah and his companions. Al-Akhtal was shocked. Hisham bin Abdul Malik said to Zayd, who do you think you are telling my poets to stop? My poets can recite when they want, where they want, and people like you will not stop them. What do they call him, Hisham bin Abdul Malik? The glorious Khalifa of Islam. Which Islam? When you order a Christian poet to recite insulting Rasulullah, which Islam? Therefore Yazid was brought up where? Yazid was brought up 1 minute in his father's palace, the next minute in the Christian surroundings. That's why people ask, how did Yazid come to power? Yazid, when he came into power, his power was the most illegitimate case of power. As in, when you come and say, Yazid, may Allah be pleased with him, how did he become a Khalifa? What was the basis? As in, some people, when they look at Yazid, some people think Yazid was chosen by the election, by the majority of the people, like Abu Bakr was. Some people think Yazid was chosen by a shura, like Uthman bin Affan was. Yazid bin Muawiyah was neither chosen by an election or a shura. Yazid bin Muawiyah was chosen by his father. Al-Mughira bin Shu'bah was the man who was the part of Yazid becoming Khalifa. Al-Mughira bin Shu'bah was the governor of Kufa. What happened was Muawiyah wanted to replace Al-Mughira with Sa'id ibn al-As. When Mughira heard this, he went and spoke to Yazid. He said to him, Yazid, why don't you succeed your father? Let me give you an idea. You should succeed your father. There is no man like you. Nobody is as powerful as you. Yazid went and told his father, Muawiyah said, Father, why don't I succeed you? Muawiyah said, who told you to succeed me? Yazid replied, Mughira bin Shu'bah. He said, keep Mughira bin Shu'bah in Kufa. He has said a good recommendation. And therefore Muawiyah appointed Yazid to represent him. But what's the big problem here? The biggest problem here is that Muawiyah agreed with Imam Hassan that Yazid would not be Khalifa after him. In the sulh of Imam Hassan with Muawiyah, one of the conditions of the treaty between Imam Hassan and Muawiyah was that Yazid will not become Khalifa after you. Was that it will go back to Al Muhammad. When Muawiyah broke this, he broke the treaty. That's why Imam al-Hussein, when he rose against Yazid, it's because Muawiyah's treaty with Imam Hassan was broken. And therefore there was a need to rise against this. Another question we ask about Yazid is this, is that when you come and say Yazid, may Allah be pleased with him, why is it in the books of history, Yazid does not have a book for himself which praise his Islamic behavior? Abu Bakr, there are books which praise his behavior. Umar ibn al-Khattab, there are books which praise his behavior. Uthman ibn Affan, there are books which praise his behavior. Ali ibn Abi Talib, there are books which praise his behavior. They are known as the four rightly guided Khulafa. Yet the question we ask is that between Ali ibn Abi Talib and Umar bin Abdul Aziz, this is about 60 years. 60 years. Between that time, even 70 years, none of the Umayyad Khulafa ever got a book which praised them. What do I mean? In the world of hadith, there is something called the Manaqib literature. The Manaqib literature are those books which praise the companions or which praise the Khulafa. When Muawiyah died, when Imam Ali died,